What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're getting into my full NFL season predictions videos. Today, every team, every record, we'll see the entire standings. But before we get into that, if you guys didn't know, I made an individual video for every single team in my full predictions of their schedule to see my individual analysis. Go check out those videos. All those videos popped off. Actually, my Denver Broncos video right there reached 9.7K. So I have to thank you all for that. That's been my most popular video by I think 5,000 views. That's pretty darn insane. I thank you all for that. But yeah, let's look at this full standings here. It's all led up to this to see the entire standings. We have at the number one seed here, the Kansas City Chiefs, finishing with a 12-5 record on the season. The two seed, winning the AFC East, we have the Miami Dolphins with 11-6. The Bengals finish as the 3 seed at 11-6, and then the Jaguars finish with the 4 seed at 10-7, winning the AFC South. For the wild card, 5 seed, we have the Baltimore Ravens, 11-6. 6 seed, the Denver Broncos, surprising team there, but that was one of my hotter takes. I think Russell Wilson and Sean Payton are going to have a very good season. They finish 11-6. The Bills, another one of these surprising teams here that finishes down as a 7th seed. Don't let that 7 seed mark fool you, though. This Bills team is just as good as the 2 seed in the Dolphins. They just barely miss out on winning the AFC East. They finish with an 11-6 record. And then we have a lot of good teams missing out the playoffs in the AFC for my predictions. We have the Jets. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, I think, are just barely going to miss the playoffs. They finished at 10-7. Another really good team that made the playoffs last year, the Chargers, 10-7. I just think in this loaded AFC, it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs. I think they're going to have their setbacks this season. 10 seed, we have the Cleveland Browns, another really good team that I think could exceed my expectations this season, but I'm going to keep them in check for Deshaun Watson. I don't think this team's too well coached. They have a 9-8 record. 11 seed, the Titans, also a solid team. They finish 8-9 with Ryan Tannehill and DeAndre Hopkins. Then we have the Steelers finishing 8-9 as a 12 seed. Another one of these shockers. The Steelers. When was the last time they've had a losing season? It's been a very long time, but they're going to have one here. And then even at the 13 seed, we have an 8-9 record. That is insane. 13 seeds, 8-9. They're going to miss out in the playoffs though for Patriots this season. I just don't think that they're going to be good enough. And finishing down here, we got some of the bottom dwellers now. The 14 seed Indianapolis Colts finishing 5-12. I do think that they have a little bit of an easier schedule for them to get some wins. But yeah, and then moving on, we have the Texans, also very similar situation to the Colts. Easier schedule, but not a whole lot of talent that I think that they're going to be able to do well. Then the Raiders. I do think the Raiders are probably a better team than the Colts and the Texans, but they have a much difficult schedule, I think. You look at that versus good teams. They're 3-9. They play 12 good teams. The Colts and the Texans only play 8. So that was a really big factor there. And then the Raiders are going to finish as the bottom feeder of the AFC at 4-13. So that is your entire AFC predictions. We will get into the playoff predictions in a minute. Let's get into the NFC if this website will load. This website's been so slow today. Holy crap. Let me click on NFC. Just bear with me, guys, for 1 second. Come on. There we go. All right, we got the NFC now. At the 1 seed in the NFC, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, the best record in the entire NFL. They finish 14-3 and get the number 1 seed. 2 seed winning the NFC West for the second straight year in a row. We have the 49ers finishing 12-5. The 3 seed, we have the Detroit Lions also finishing 11-6. Pretty good year for Detroit. 4 seed, we have the Saints, also finishing 7-10. That is by far and away the worst team to make the playoffs here. They somehow make it, and they finish 7-10. But then we have the 5 seed, the Cowboys, finishing 13-4. That's a very interesting matchup between the Saints and the Cowboys. Very bad, very mediocre team at best against a very good Dallas Cowboys team, in my opinion. Moving on, we have the 6 seed in the Seattle Seahawks, finishing 11-6. Very good year for Seattle. 7 seed, we have the Giants, just barely beating out the Vikings there for the 9-8 mark. I don't think these teams played in the season. They might have, but let's see what they're. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the conference record. I think that got the Giants above it, but yeah, that is going to be them. And then the Vikings just barely going to miss out on the playoffs this season as an 8 seed. That's going to be rough for Vikings fans to swallow, but I think that this is almost rebuild time for Minnesota. Number 9 seed, we have the Green Bay Packers. I think Jordan Love's going to have a good season. It's a good defense. This team could make the playoffs, but I do think that they're going to come up just short this season as well. And then 2 teams that just miss out in the NFC South crown. We have the 10-seeded Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young. Honestly, I think the Panthers might be a better team than the Saints this season, but the Saints are just barely getting it over them. And then we have the 11th seed, the Atlanta Falcons. Also a decent team, I think. They got a good run game going there with Bijan. But number 12, we have the Bears finishing 6-11. A lot of Bears fans did not appreciate that. So yeah. But number 13, we have the Commanders finishing 4-13 on the year. I think Commanders could be better than what this record says, but it is what it is down there. 14, we have the Buccaneers finishing 4-13. Not a good team at all, I think. And then 15, the Rams, also not a very good team in my opinion at all. And then the 16 seed, we have the Arizona Cardinals, the last team in the NFL, finishing 2-15. So you look at the main takeaway, I think, from this is that you look at the AFC. Who do I think makes the playoffs? I think the Steelers are a better team than the Giants. The Browns, definitely the Jets and the Chargers are better teams than the 7-seeded Giants. So it's kind of unfortunate that what happened. And I do think the Titans, if they were in the NFC South, are the better team over any of those NFC South teams. So, yeah, those are the full records. Now it's time to get into playoff predictions here. The big part of the video here. Playoffs. Sorry, it's saying this page is unresponsive. Oh my gosh. We just got to keep waiting for it. Bear with me, guys, but I'm just going to sit here. But, yeah, so we're going to have some of these happen. There you go. Is it going to let me now? There you go. I don't know why this website's been so slow. It's just had so much happening with me with these predictions, but maybe it's just my Wi-Fi. I don't even know. But we're getting there for the wild card round. Teams on bye are the Chiefs and the Eagles. So let's get into this wild card round. Let's start out with this 2 versus 7 matchup. We have the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills, a division rivalry game. These teams tied up this seat in their season series. I believe these teams played in the last week of the year, and the Dolphins won it, which was a big-time win for Miami. But yeah, Buffalo, obviously, very experienced team in the postseason. Yeah, they did play, and Miami won. So they're going to be playing in 2 weeks in a row. But let's just get this breakdown going here. You look at the Dolphins this season. I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a very good quarterback for Miami. They have a lot of weapons. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. The Bills, they're off their cornerbacks, might struggle a little bit against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle keeping up. That's why I do think that the Dolphins get one against Buffalo this season. The Bills' defense still, they got some really good linebackers. They still have a good secondary there, but I do think that the Dolphins would win that battle with the receivers versus the secondary. On the other side of the ball, though, you look at the Bills' defensive line. The Bills' defensive line versus the Dolphins' O-line. I think the Dolphins' O-line is going to take some steps up this season. This Dolphins team is very quick on offense, so it's going to be tough for this Bills' defense. But this Bills' defense is still a pretty darn good unit. And then on the other side of the ball, You look at the Dolphins Dolphins defense here. Jalen Ramsey looking like he's injured, but at this point on the year, he's probably back. I'm not sure what that injury was about, but obviously Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, bringing in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. That's going to be a very good duel for Josh Allen. It's going to be tough for Tua for sure. I believe this is his first playoff game. The Dolphins are at home, so they do get this home field advantage. This is also a rematch of last season's playoff game. But I think that we're going to have the first 7-seed upset in NFL history here, because these two teams are the same records. This is a tough game on the road, but Josh Allen, I think with the playoff experience for this Bills team, this team's experience, I just think that they're probably the better team anyway. Just coming off a win against the Dolphins, they're going to make their adjustments. I think it's kind of tough. Both these teams are really well coached. I could see this one going either way, but I'm going to have to give it to the Buffalo Bills on the road for the upset win. So now let's go on to the 6-seeded Denver Broncos, the 3-seeded Cincinnati Bengals. Wow, this is a very, very interesting matchup, I think, here. You look at the Broncos at this point on in the season. I said it in my video. I think the Broncos, they might start out a little bit slow to the NFL season. I think it might take, because obviously this isn't going to be fixed overnight with the Russell Wilson concerns last year in this offense. This offense was not very good at all last year. But I think that Russell Wilson and Sean Payton are going to connect, and we're going to see some improvement as the season goes on. Keep seeing improvement, and this team's going to be very, very good. And don't forget about this defense. This defense kept the Broncos in about every game last year. This Broncos team, I think, is very underrated because people are forgetting how good of a quarterback Russell Wilson was just 2 seasons ago in that 2020 year. He was torching up defenses. So with Sean Payton, it should be a good team. It should be a very scary team at this point on. But then again, you have a very, very scary team as well here in the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, Icy Joe, or whatever they call him. I don't know if that's right. That's probably not right. But Joe Burrow, man, what a quarterback he is. He has ice in his veins. Obviously, he knows how to win this young in his career. It's insane. These receivers, Jamar Chase, what's his face? Why am I forgetting the other guy? Tyler Boyd, and then the other guy. I don't know why I forgot his name, but you know him, one of the second receivers there. Sorry, but the Bengals offense, very good. This O-line still has its concerns, but it's getting improved. The Broncos have their concerns for sure at O-line as well. Obviously, I think the Broncos defense is going to be better than the Bengals this season. The Bengals defense, very underrated as well. It's a very solid defense. We saw how good they were last year in the postseason. So this is an interesting matchup. Denver Broncos, I think they're going to be a very scary team. I think that they're going to be underrated and a contender at this point on the season. But the Bengals at home, Joe Burrow, I think that these receivers are better than the Broncos. The Broncos' offensive line, I think, is worse than the Bengals. This defense gonna have a good time, I think. I think that this is going to be a little bit of a slightly defensive battle, I think, that a lot of people might anticipate. I want to give it to Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. I really do. This is tough, actually, guys. I could see the Broncos going into Cincinnati and pulling off this upset. But I think that with the question marks for the Denver Broncos, I got to go with Cincinnati, man. Joe Burrow and this Bengals team knows how to win. They're going to advance on. Okay, and then we have a 4 versus a 5-seeded matchup here. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Fun game here. Jacksonville out of the AFC South. This is actually the worst record of a team in the playoffs in the AFC, which is pretty crazy for the Jaguars. But both these teams, very, very solid teams. Let's start out here with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, obviously a very, very good running quarterback. He is their run game alone. I know that the running backs for the Ravens aren't as good. This O-line, really solid for the Ravens as well. They got some The receiving core I'm worried about, though. OBJ, I'm not sure. Zay Flowers, though, good pickup, but he's still a rookie. So the receiving core is an interesting factor here for the Ravens. It's a problem, I think, but with that O-line and this new scheme, I think it's going to really help out Lamar. The defense, obviously, for the Ravens, Roquan Smith and the linebacker group, this defensive line is relentless. The defensive backs are good as well. Very well coached for the Ravens, so the defense is not a problem at all on that side of the ball. We look at, now let's look at the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, obviously a rising star. He's going to be a very good quarterback. He's already won a playoff game and was competitive in another one against the Super Bowl champions last year in the Kansas City Chiefs. This Jaguars team, pretty solid. Other than Trevor Lawrence, pretty solid. Good, well-coached team under Doug Peterson. The receivers, they're bringing Christian Kirk and what's-his-face that was suspended last year, Calvin Ridley. All those players are coming back. So they have some decent receivers here. They have 3 good receivers. They don't have an alpha in there like some of these teams do. But the receivers, the Jaguars win it out against the Ravens, I think. The O-line for the Jaguars, pretty decent. It's just an average O-line, I think. But now we move on to the defensive side of the ball. They have a pretty darn good pass rush. The secondary, not the best in the league, though. And, yeah, so with all those factors in this game, I do think this defensive line against this O-line is going to be a good battle. On the Ravens offense versus the defense side of the ball, it's pretty tough there. But, yeah, this is a tough game here. Both these teams are pretty darn solid. But I'm going to have to give this one to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to give this one to the 5-seeded Ravens. Upset win. It's going to be a good game. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, I just think, are the better team with that defense. I think it's a better defense. The Jaguars are still a young team. It's going to be a fun one, but I'm going to give it to the 5-seeded Ravens. Moving on here in the NFC, we have the Saints versus the Cowboys. I don't really think I need to do a full breakdown for this one. The Saints, I think, are an overrated team. I think that their offense, not great. Derek Carr is a descending quarterback, in his career. I just don't think this team's very good. And this defense is getting old, so I don't think that the defense is going to help the Saints out much either. I just don't think the Saints are a very good team. That's my opinion on the Saints. The Dallas Cowboys, though, very good team, very good roster. Obviously, we all know the Cowboys tend to choke in the playoffs, but if we're going off this roster talent, man, this defense is very good. They got solid receivers. It's a very, very good offensive line, and Dak Prescott's going to do Dak Prescott things. It's not the best coached team in the league, which does have its setbacks, but I do think that the Cowboys are clearly the better team over the Saints. And then we have the Seahawks versus the Lions here. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, so I might be a little bit biased. These two teams played early in the year, and the Lions won in my predictions. But, yeah, I mean, you look at Seattle at this point on, I think Geno Smith's going to ball out this season. They have one of the best trios in the league in the receiver core. The offensive line has its questions. It's a young unit there. They got 2 very young tackles, 2 very young guards. A really good guard in Damian Lewis, though, but they do have some young guards there. And then the center kind of worries me, that new center that they got. But the run game, obviously, very good in Pete Carroll's system and with the wide zone spread, Shanahan type or McVay's type system. The defense for Seattle obviously worries me in the run. Like the run defensive line there, it's a little bit of a concern. I think the pass rush is going to be better here this season for Seattle, which is a good thing. But you look at and obviously the secondary, Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, and then those safeties, Jamal Adams coming back. Hopefully he can stay healthy all year. It's going to be a very good secondary. It's really just the run attack that I'm worried about. But then you look at the Lions. Obviously the Lions are a hyped-up team this season. They got Jared Goff. Jared Goff's going to be a very good quarterback. I think, this year. And the offensive line, very, very solid for the Lions. Obviously, they got a lot of talent there. And then the receivers, pretty good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they're not entirely sure they got some of the other receivers they got. So it's a little bit of a question, I think, on the receiver. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, pretty darn good receiver. I do think he got suspended, but still, it's a good receiving core. The defense still has some work to do. I think that's where the hype gets a little bit too much for the Lions, is the defense is still not great. And I do think that the Seahawks are just the better team in general over the Lions. So I do think that they're going to have a win here. I know it's in Detroit, but I think that Seattle is the better team. Moving on, we have the San Francisco 49ers against the New York Jets. Obviously, the quarterback situation for San Francisco is a concern, but at this point in the year, I think it's going to be figured out. Brock Purdy probably going to be back. Kyle Shanahan and this system, it's like literally the best system for any quarterback. It's been proven time and time again. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks can succeed. Obviously, this defense is one of the best in the league, if not the best. It's a top defense. They got good receivers and Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. And then the run game, obviously Christian McCaffrey with a very good O-line for the Niners that has been prone to injuries in the past, but I do think it's a good offensive line. And then they're going up against a very well-coached team in the New York Giants. A very good defense, but a lot of concerns, I think, on the offense. Is Daniel Jones the guy? Saquon Barkley, good run game. The offensive line had really stepped up last season after a very bad offensive line unit in the past. You look at the Giants, it's a good team. It's a very well-coached team. But they're going to run into their troubles here, I think, against the Niners. This Niners team is just better well-coached. They have a better run game, better defense. I just think that they're probably a better team overall in like all the ways that the Giants are trying to do here. And it's going to be too tough, I think, for New York, and I think they're going to lose that one. So that is the wild card round. A lot of analysis going on there. We're going to not do as much for the teams we've done here. And we've already did our entire analysis. Let's do the 1 seeds, of course. We have the 2 1 seeds from last year are the 1 seeds here. We have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs this season, top team, obviously. Top team, Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the league. You can never count out Patrick Mahomes. The receivers, even if they got, not the best receiving group in the league, you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. And then obviously you have Travis Kelce. The O-line, pretty decent as well. And the run game, not the best, but it'll do. It'll do for Kansas City. And the defense, pretty solid as well. It's a above average defense. But obviously Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce are literally the heart and soul of this team, and they really carry this team to victories. But we have a 1 seed versus a 7 seed here, Buffalo against the Chiefs. I gave this one in the regular season to the Buffalo Bills, which was a little bit of a surprise. As a 7 seed in the Bills, it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. But I can't see the Bills beating Kansas City 2 times in one season. So I think that they're going to have to wait out on winning against the Chiefs, which is unfortunate for Bills fans. They're going to lose in the divisional round again to Kansas City. Unfortunate for sure. And Bills fans are going to have to suffer another year. Moving on, we have the Ravens versus the Bengals. 5-seeded Ravens, 3-seeded Bengals. These teams evened out in the season. This is going to be a fun matchup. Joe Burrow and Cincinnati. Wow, really good matchup, I think. I think it's going to be this is a tough one, man, because the Ravens, I do think Lamar Jackson is going to have enough, but the secondary for the Bengals isn't the best in the league, but I am going to give this one to Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. I think that the Joe Burrow and the Bengals are a very good team this year, and it's going to be tough for the Ravens for sure, and I think that they're going to lose again in the postseason to the Bengals. But that one can go either way. I do think Lamar Jackson can tear apart that Bengals defense. I just don't think it's going to be enough. All right, moving on here, we have the Cowboys versus the 49ers. Very, very good matchup here. Am I hyping up the Cowboys too much with a 13-4 record? Maybe. This team isn't the best well-coached team in the league, but if you look at their roster, they have to figure things out because I think that this Cowboys defense might arguably be better than the Niners defense. Um, and I think that that's just proven. I think that the Cowboys defense, a very good defense. Both these defense very good. I mean, it's tough, but the Cowboys have I think a little bit of a better secondary. But I don't know. It's tough. Dak Prescott, I think, is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. This is an interesting game. I was debating giving this one to the 5 seeded Cowboys, but it's in San Francisco. Okay. Yeah, I think I have to go with the Niners. I think I have to go with the Niners, man. I'm going with 49ers. Sadly, gonna have to go with the Niners. I don't like them at all, but they're gonna win that one, I think. All right, Seattle against Philadelphia, the Seahawks. I'm a Seahawks fan, of course. This is gonna be a fun one, I think. The Seahawks, very good team. I think that Geno Smith and this secondary could get the Eagles. I think that the Eagles' pride might be getting in the way of this one. Do I go with an insane upset here? I think the run game could work against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts. You know what, guys? I'm going to go with a 6-seeded win. I like the Seahawks' chances in this one. The Eagles, I do have as the best record in the league, arguably the best team in the entire league, but I got to have some crazy upset, I think, in the NFC divisional round. I think Geno Smith and this defense is going to be there. The Eagles could run all over the Seahawks in this game, which does concern me a bit, but I don't think the Eagles' running backs are as good. The O-line, obviously, very, very good, but I don't think that the Eagles have a very good running back duo there with DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, I think, is overrated. They lost Miles Sanders. So I'm going to give this one to Seattle. I think that the secondary, they're going to have some troubles with DK, Lockett, and Njigba. The offensive line might have some troubles against that D-line, but I do think that the receivers and the run game can counterbalance it. So I'm going to go with an upset, a crazy one at that, but the Seahawks move on. All right, we have the conference championship round, a rematch of last year's matchup, the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Very good matchup here. In the regular season, I gave it to the Chiefs. I'm going to give this one to the Cincinnati Bengals, though. I think that Joe Burrow can pull off the win over Patrick Mahomes. I just think that the Bengals overall in general are probably a overall better team than the Kansas City Chiefs, even with Patrick Mahomes. I think that we saw it last year in the AFC Championship game. It was tough, but I think that the Bengals can win it. And they're going to advance on to the Super Bowl. So then we have a final matchup in the NFC Championship game here. The Seahawks versus the 49ers. NFC West rivalry game. Both these teams evened out in their season series. Wow, both these teams. This is a good one. Seattle, I think, is going to be a very, very good team this year. But I think that their luck's probably going to run out. They just beat the best team, arguably the best team in the league, the best record team in the league. I think it's going to run out. They're going to lose, I think, to the Niners. That pains me to say, losing to the Niners in the NFC Championship. But I think it's going to happen. Sadly, I think the Niners defense is just going to be too much at this point on in the year. All right, the final Super Bowl here. We have the 3-seeded Bengals, the 2-seeded San Francisco 49ers. Let's go here. Let's give a full Super Bowl breakdown here. The Bengals offense, very good. I think that these Bengals receivers can beat out this Niners receivers. I think Seattle could give the Niners some trouble there too. The O-line, a little bit questionable against that D-line, but I think that they can hold their own. If we look at the other side of the ball, Joe Burrow clearly a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. And I think that's what's going to hold back the Niners is that they have a little bit of a quarterback question there. The run game, this Niners offense is pretty darn good. Kyle Shanahan's going to try and call up as many plays as he can to get a good game out of Brock Purdy, but I don't think it's going to be enough.